Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really powerful idea, social constructivism.
Right. It's all about how we understand the world around us.
Exactly. We're using excerpts from The Social Construction of Knowledge as our guide here.
And the basic mission, really, is to unpack this idea that knowledge isn't just out there to be found.
Yeah, it's something we actively, you know, build together. Okay.
Let's get into it.
Well, the core assertion is pretty striking, isn't it? That human understanding is fundamentally social.
It really challenges that whole notion of purely objective knowledge, separate from us.
It does. It suggests that what we know, the meanings we use, even what feels like solid reality, well, it's constructed
To how we interact.
through interaction, definitely, and through language, shared experiences, all happening within our specific cultures and communities.
So it flips that traditional model, the one where we're just passive receivers of information.
Yeah, it turns it right on its head.
Yeah.
We're not just finding knowledge, we're actively making it and maintaining it, too, through social stuff. Okay, and this process, it relies heavily on context, doesn't it? Especially cultural context.
Absolutely. You don't just like download information and avoid.
Mm.
Learning, understanding these happen through talking, negotiating, engaging with others
Yeah.
in real social settings.
It probably helps to have some concrete examples. What did the sources point to? Things that maybe surprise you to think of as constructed.
Oh, definitely. The sources give some great ones. Take money, for instance.
Okay.
Its value.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with the actual paper or metal, right? It's entirely about collective belief, human agreement, and the systems we build around that.
Right. It only works because we all agree it works.
Exactly. Or think about bigger categories like race or gender roles, even how we understand mental illness.
Okay. How so?
Well, the theory argues these aren't necessarily fixed, objective biological facts. They're powerful concepts that societies kind of invent and reinforce.
Can change, right.
Absolutely. They change over time as social agreements shift. I mean, the way we define and treat mental illness now is vastly different from, say, 100 years ago. That reflects changing social understanding, not just new medical facts.
That leads us to language, which seems absolutely key in this whole construction process.
It's fundamental. Language is like the primary toolkit. It's how we share ideas, negotiate what things mean, build those shared frameworks.
You see it with kids learning, don't you?
Totally. Kids don't just passively get vocabulary lists. They learn language and through it, the world by, interacting, asking questions, playing, copying people.
Does the source mention Vygotsky? That seems relevant here.
It does, yeah. Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, the ZPD, it fits perfectly.
Remind us what that is.
So the ZPD is basically that sweet spot where learning happens best, when a task is just a little bit too hard to do alone.
But you can manage it with help.
Exactly. With help from someone who knows more, or even with cultural tools and language, is a massive one. It shows learning as this deeply social thing, building understanding together.
And this isn't just for big abstract concepts. The sources also touch on how our everyday reality feels so solid, so natural.
Right. That connects to broader ideas, like from Berger and Luckman. They talk about things like institutionalization and habitualization.
Which basically means
It's how our repeated actions become habits, predictable patterns. And those patterns eventually solidify into what feel like fixed structures or institutions.
like marriage or government or even just queuing properly.
Exactly. Those things feel real and external, but they started as human actions and agreements. And then these structures, which we built, turn around and shape how we see the world.
So, okay, if our understanding is so shaped by society, what are the implications? Where does this idea lead?
Well, the sources suggest it impacts loads of fields. Education, for one. It strongly supports things like group work, collaborative learning.
Because knowledge is built together.
Precisely. In politics, it helps you see how different stories, different narratives gain traction and shape what people believe.
And science, does it apply there too?
Yeah, in science and technology studies, or STS, it encourages a look at how even scientific findings aren't just a pure reflection of nature.
How so?
They can be influenced by, the social factors within science, research norms, funding, even power dynamics. It doesn't mean science isn't real, but that it's also a social process.
Now, the big pushback often is, doesn't this lead to relativism? If everything's constructed, is anything really true?
That's a really common concern, and the source material addresses it directly. It's a crucial point.
So what's the counter?
The argument isn't usually that there's no material reality out there independent of us. It's more that our understanding of that reality, our knowledge about it, the meaning it has for us.
That's always filter.
It's always filtered, yes.
Okay.
Interpreted, mediated through our social lens, language, culture, history, interaction. We can only access and make sense of the world through those social processes.
Okay. So, wrapping this up, the key takeaway is our grasp on reality, on truth, on what matters. It's profoundly shaped by our social world.
Deeply. By culture, language, and just that constant back and forth with other people.
It's really an invitation then for you listening to think critically about the things you accept as just real or natural.
Think about something you hold as absolutely true or objective.
And then ask yourself, how much of that feeling, that certainty, actually rests on shared agreements, on the language you use, the social context you're in?
And maybe consider,
Yeah.
what happens when those social agreements start to shift? What changes then?